India is the fifth largest economy in the world, which means that collectively we rank fifth in the world in terms of economy. But Indians are ranked 139th in terms of average income as compared to other countries in the world. So it looks like collectively we're rich, but then individually we're far away from it. You must have read this or heard about it, that just about 1.6% of Indians in the country actually pay direct income taxes. But why is that? And one of the major reasons for it is that the minimum salary that you need to be at in order to pay taxes is 3 lakhs per year. But apparently, a lot of Indians don't even make that much every year. And hence, this is one of the reasons why not a lot of Indians pay taxes. Now, as a lead up to the upcoming elections in 2024, I've made this series of videos on what Indians should be asking from our next government that is good for the country overall. And this is the second video of the series in which I'm diving deeper into one of the 5 points that I had mentioned on what Indians should be asking from its upcoming government. So please subscribe to my channel so you get to see the series, and please let me know in the comment section on what is your opinion on all of this. Okay, so now coming back to the video. So I'm going to break this in 3 parts. We're talking about one of the 5 things, which is the economy that India has, and what should Indians be asking or expecting from the government when it comes to the economy of our country. Let's break this down into 3 parts. Firstly, we'll talk about the poor class, or the people that are in the poverty line in this country. Then we'll talk about the middle class in the country. And then finally, we'll talk about a few additional factors that we should be aware of that come along with a better economy. So coming back to what we were talking about. So a lot of our population does not even earn enough to pay taxes, because the minimum average income should be at least 3 lakhs a year. Now, if you look around the world in other developed countries, there is this interesting policy called as minimum wage policy. Now, minimum wage policy is something that defines on how much minimum should a citizen get paid based on whether they're unskilled, semi-skilled, or highly skilled. So there are different rates for each of these categories, and whoever gets employed in these countries are protected by this so that they're not exploited, and they at least get paid the minimum wage. Now, did you know that India also has a minimum wage policy? If you're hearing about this for the first time in my video, then it obviously goes to show that the implementation of this policy hasn't been as per the desired levels. And there are a few problems with that. So let's talk about those. Now, when you talk about minimum wage policy, the implementation of that can come when you have a lot of companies that fall in the organized sector as against the unorganized sector. Let me explain the difference between the two. So the organized sectors are companies that we know of, the companies that we work in, for example, where they are incorporated. There is a written contract between you and them about your employment. You have other benefits like PF, pension, health insurance, life insurance. You have something called paid leaves, so on and so forth. The unorganized sectors, or companies that fall under that, are these unincorporated organizations. Over there, none of these things exist. There's no written contract, there are no benefits, there are no paid leaves whatsoever. So what sort of companies or what sort of jobs fall under the unorganized sector? Let's look at a few examples. One of the examples that come at the top of my mind is the maids that work in our houses, the gardeners, or the car cleaners, or the bike cleaners, or the shopkeepers in these small shops. Now, these are all unorganized sectors, which means that they don't follow any rules and regulations. They don't have any contract between them and the employee, and there is no job security, so to speak, for the employee. Now, one might argue that, hey, look, the maids actually end up making a lot more money, sometimes even more than a fresher who joins the IT sector, as an example. But then those are the dangers of the unorganized sector. So while there cannot be a lower limit, there cannot even be an upper limit. So people tend to charge as per their liking, which is why you will see two different mates giving you two different rates for the same kind of work that they will do. The other problem with that though is that there is no job security either for the employee. So if today one of us decides to tell our mate not to come from tomorrow, she wouldn't have a choice but to leave the job and find something else. So in this kind of an unorganized sector, it will be very difficult to implement something like the minimum wage policy. So while India has a minimum wage policy, it's important for the government to figure out how to bring more companies and more jobs in the organized sectors. And just so you know, there's about 83% of Indians that are employed in the unorganized sector, and just about 17% of us that are employed in the organized sector. So there's a huge population working in this sector, and a lot of them, while some of them may be doing well, like the maids and so on, a lot of them do not make even some minimum wage that lifts them out of poverty. Now, that was the poor class. Let's now talk about the middle class in India. Now, the middle class in India has been doing really well over the last few years. It is estimated now that almost 30 to 31% of India's population falls in the middle class bracket, which means almost 1 in every 3 Indian is a middle class. Now that's great, and it is said that in about 7 years from now, by 2031, that will go up to 38%, and by 2047, it will go up to a 60%. So which means almost 2 in every 3 Indian will be middle class, and that's amazing. India's middle class story has been really strong over the last few years, and it continues to show good promise over the next few years. What is the middle class bracket though? Now you will find different definitions on the internet about what sort of income makes you fall in that bracket. In some cases you will see an income of between 5 lakhs to 20 lakhs per year, or in some other cases you will find 7.5 lakhs to 15 lakhs per year. But whatever the bracket may be, and maybe the bracket may keep changing with time, it's good to know that a huge number of our Indian population is going to fall in that bracket eventually. But what we need from the government, according to me, is to see if there is a way to expedite this and make sure that we hit that 60% a lot faster than 2047. Like 2047 is almost 24-25 years from now. Is there a way that we hit that 60% mark in maybe the next 5% to 10%? What are the changes that the government can bring in this whole economy so that we grow to that at a lot faster rate than what is expected over the next few years? So that's the middle class story. Now, I'm not going to talk about the rich class, obviously, because there's obviously not a lot that the government needs to do to help them grow financially. They're already doing well. In fact, if anything, a lot of them might be actually helping the Indian economy. But the third thing that I do want to talk about is, so what happens if we start to go down this path where we start to improve our economy, collectively, including our government and the citizens, let's say? What are the shortfalls of having a better economy? Now, if you look at other countries around the world that are set to be developed countries, one of the things that they complain about is the cost of living that has gone really high. So while their incomes are really high, the cost of living is also high. One of the common complaints is their struggle with the real estate. So it's very difficult and costly to rent a place or even to buy a place in many cases. And the general cost of living seems to be very high in these developed nations. So is there something that India's government can do to learn from the mistakes from all these other countries and make sure that as our economy gets better and as more and more Indians start to join the ranks of maybe the middle class or the rich class of the world, is there a way for us to ensure that the prices don't go as high as the incomes are going? Because let's say our incomes have gone up, but if our prices have gone up as well, then our purchasing power has not really changed much. What will really make a difference for us is if our purchasing power has gone up drastically. And for that to happen, what needs to happen is that while our incomes go up, the cost of living should be maintained at respectable levels so that we feel the advantage of earning that much more money and not necessarily live the same kind of life that we have now. So I think these are broadly some of the things that us as Indians should be expecting from the government or from the upcoming government, and really cast our votes keeping this in mind, knowing who can promise better conditions, at least as far as economy goes in India in the coming years. With that, I encourage you to let me know in the comments section on whether you agree with this and what are the other factors you think that I may have missed out in this video that are also important from an economical standpoint that the government should take into account. Subscribe to my channel so that you get to see the upcoming videos as well. And what are the other 4 factors apart from the economy that we should be looking for from our next government? I'll see you in the next video.